I was.
It is. Hello, you are listening to Professional Women Personal Stories with me, your host, A.Michelle Blakeley. Although we often hear about the success stories of women entrepreneurs, rarely do we get an inside look at the personal challenges that came along with achieving that success. Professional Women Personal Stories is a series of interviews with women entrepreneurs and professionals who have had a life-changing experience or some other catalyst event that has led them to start and grow their business or to simply discover and embrace and live their purpose. And today our guest is Denise W. Barreto, managing partner and founder of Relationships Matter Now, LLC, which is a strategic business and marketing firm built on RMN approach of engagement, collaboration, and leadership. And you know your business best, and Denise knows how to bring your best to the forefront. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Before we go into your background, what is the RMN approach, just for clarification?
Sure. It's my brand promise and my methodology that sets me apart from other people that are doing my business. It boils down to engaging folks and getting engagement. Really has the way we define it is connecting an individual's story to the story that the organization or the company is building. And once you got them to engage, then the next step is the collaboration. And we interchange collaboration with co-creation because we believe that adults, the only way they learn and retain information is when they're contributing to forming that information. So when we say collaboration, we really mean, you come in the room, we don't have a set agenda for you. We're going to co-create, and after you've gotten people engaged, it's very easy for them to want to collaborate, and then what that does is it leads to leadership, which is that last pillar. It enables everybody to lead. Sometimes in organizations, people think of leadership as something that happens with people who manage people, and with our methodology, we enable everybody to lead, whatever role they have.
Perfect. Perfect. So why don't we give the listeners some background and context, and tell us a little bit about your previous life and
Sure.
how you came to start Relationship Matters Now.
Yeah, wow, it was one of those, I had a 20-year corporate marketing career is the best way to describe it. Worked in various organizations, nonprofit, large scale, Fortune 500, but always as a marketer, always, it's funny, I should have had a clue that I was going to be an entrepreneur because every single role I had at a company was always a brand new role. It was a role that had never been there before, or I was part of a startup and we were just doing this all for the first time. I never had a job during my career where somebody said, oh, we can't do that because we did that last year. I mean, I never heard that
Right.
because in every single job I was in, I was expected to lay the groundwork. So I think that, like I said, that should have been my clue to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't pick up on it until a little late in the game.
And so, was there a catalyst that came to you where you said, you know what, I need to formulate this particular concept or idea and make a run of it on my own, or was
Yeah,
it a
it was.
slowly evolving type of thing?
No, it was definitely a catalytic event. In 2008, I can pinpoint it right away. Had a very rough year in my marriage and didn't know that my marriage was going to make it. And I think when that happened, it rocked me and made me stop and, take stock, right? Like every single thing I'm doing, is it helping me and strengthening me as a person that enables me to bring my best me into my marriage? And of course, when I started that, to take stock, I realized right away, I'm not using my best talents every day at work. And, you spend
Right.
your most time at work. And right away, I mean, I didn't, and you can attest to this because you were there. Right away, I didn't know what that was going to be or what that was going to look like. But I knew that I had to do something.
Yeah. A little bit of survival starts to kick in, and you need to really kind of take stock at, okay, what am I doing,
Right,
and where am I going?
right.
So, what were some of the I should say, what were some of the biggest challenges that you experienced in getting your business up and going?
It was a couple of things. I think the first and most important challenge, and once I got over that, I was good, was the mental challenge. I grew up in a household where, my dad was an auto mechanic, my mom was a retail worker, and then she passed away, and then my stepmom, didn't work. And so, this everything that was given to me in terms of tools was you go to school, you get a job. There was never the option of pursue your, pursue your talents or
Right.
start a business. So honestly, and nobody said that to me in high school and guidance counselor. So by the time I was almost 40 when I started my business. So you think about it, it was undoing a lot of mental, can I do this? And
Mm-hmm.
once you have a family and people are depending on you, I think it was all mental, because the second I crossed the mental barrier, it was on.
Perfect. And what helped you overcome the mental? I know sometimes women entrepreneurs, even when they're not new in their business, I mean, you're talking about experienced professionals, sometimes we tend to suffer from imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
Was that the case with you? And if it was, how did you work your way through that?
You know what? It still is the case with me because, well, and I'm being honest because, okay, once I got over, I'm a business owner and these are the things I'm going to be doing. I'll give you an example. Right now, the biggest segment of growth in my business is organizational development.
Hmm.
I don't have a degree in organizational development. You know what I mean? I'm a marketer.
Right.
And so even today, so the one thing I do to overcome it, because you have to overcome it every day, is reading. I'm a voracious reader. And, anything I don't know, I'm going to find out. So, or I'm going to surround myself with people. I think the other thing that I've learned is, the best way to cure imposter syndrome. So my number 2 person right now, she just got her master's from the University of San Francisco in organizational development. So
Oh,
anytime I feel like, I don't know if I have that, I just pick up the phone and call Shantae.
gotcha. Keep yourself with tons of resources.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
speaking of resources, what resources did you leverage to establish your business and get it going?
You know what? I am not just saying this because I'm talking to you, but I tell people all the time. It was in the early days, it was my micro business therapy. You and I connected through Twitter, and I swear, it was just at that right time, right? I didn't have, you remember, no idea, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I think I had the name for my business, not even all the way, but I knew my focus, and that I'm
Right.
very proud of. The focus has never changed, even though what I'm delivering has changed over the years. But having that weekly, or how, I don't know how often we talked, but in those early days, having that ability to sit down with somebody and brain dump, and somebody who didn't know me, who couldn't judge, who could just literally give me objective feedback about what I was saying, and ideas. I mean, to this day, I still use some of the resources
Good.
that I got during that time. So,
And with regards to insight and tips, I know now that you're working with, you said a lot of government agencies and corporations. How do you keep your pipeline full? How are you managing to where you're not constantly scrambling for clients? Because I know sometimes that's a challenge for people as well when they're just starting out, is having to constantly search for and acquire clients. Do you have any tips or insight on how people can maintain their pipeline?
sure. Well, first of all, I got to tell you, events are really big for me. I do a lot of, and that was actually one of the things that you talked to me about early on was, offering up in fact, that's what started my business, me volunteering to speak at, the state conference for other people who were municipal elected officials like myself. Right now, twice a year, I go to their conference. I volunteer. I pay myself the $200. But last year, the return on that $200 was like $14,000 in business. So the initial, I would say the initial tip that I would tell people is try to hit critical mass, right? Yes, you can use your network and call people individually, but anytime you can find bunches of people and groups of people that are in that target. So my other big target is parks and recreation organizations. Right
Oh,
now,
really?
yeah, I work with over 25 parks and recreation organizations across the state. And what
Wow.
started to happen, Michelle, now is they tell their friends. So it started with, hey, I went to those conferences and I spoke about marketing, I spoke about strategic planning, spoke about those things I knew they needed to hear about in customer service and org
Hmm.
development, even though at the time I didn't know it. And now my pipeline is flowing because I'm delivering great services. And so as I'm doing projects with people, I'm like, and if you've got a peer in the town over, let them know about me. And that's exactly what they're
Right.
doing. I mean, I literally tell my clients, please tell your friends, and they always do.
Perfect. Let's talk a little bit more about your business. Exactly what is Relationships Matters now? I mean, give the listeners a good overview of your concept and what some of the benefits are from them utilizing your services.
Sure. So I'm a consultant, and I have a team of consultants. And it's funny because at first I was very hung up on not being able to say what I did, because we do strategic planning for government agencies where we will come in and do the full strategic planning process, SWOT analysis, all of that, and then hand them a deliverable for them to execute for 3 to 5 years. We also do marketing planning. Last year we won an RFP that was so awesome for a 31-year-old literacy organization in Chicago that just wanted to rebrand themselves. We also do the org development, as I was saying, with Parks and Rec organizations. I mean, they have lots of employees in different locations, and trying to get people to have consistent customer service skills is very difficult. So those are 3 very different areas, but the thing that ties it together is engage, collaborate, lead. It's our methodology. It's the way we work, no matter what the project is. And I've done, engage, collaborate, lead with the Home Depot on inclusion and diversity strategy. So really, the best way I describe us is, people come to us when they have a strategic challenge, and it could be the gamut of things. But when they come to us, we apply our methodology, and our methodology is to get as many minds around it from their organization. And that's why, that's why my copywriting is the way it is. You know your organization best, but we know how to get the best out of your people. So, it's funny, I still struggle with the elevator story, so I just stick with it. Collaborate, lead.
Perfect. What quick tips do you have to help people cultivate meaningful relationships? How can, especially with all the social media that we have going on and people constantly wanting to connect and add numbers to their profiles in the networks, but not necessarily do the work to establish the relationships? What tips do you have for helping people turn some of those numbers into meaningful relationships?
It's funny that you say that, because, that's even what my clients ask me, right? Like, we have 100 employees, but we don't know how to engage all 100 of them. Right. And the big thing I always say, it's a couple of things, and it starts with being real and creating an environment where people can be real. I have learned in this little bit of time of being a business owner that I am irresistible to some people, but to other people, I repel them. They cannot.
Not so much. I find that hard to believe.
Well, but it's true. But you know what? That makes me know that, I'm onto something, because when you're real and when you you use your talents in the most authentic way and you communicate in the most authentic way, you attract the people that you're supposed to work with. You attract the kind of people that you need to interact with. So being real is really the number one thing. I think the second thing is being able to articulate what you offer others. I have a huge Rolodex. I have a huge network. But that doesn't do me any good if I haven't articulated well what I do. And that was a big lesson, about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years into my business I was like, man, all these people like me, all these people know me, but I'm not getting them to work on my behalf. And I realized it's because I didn't have that clean, concise articulation of what I do. And that's why now that we have the engage, collaborate, lead, that is, that's meaty. Even if someone says, hey, you know what, I have a marketing problem, or I have an inclusion and diversity problem, whatever it is, people say, oh, you know what, I know a young lady in her company, this is what they do. They engage your people. They help you collaborate better with your people. That enables leadership in your people. And then I get a call. And that is because I've articulated it well, and so now my network can articulate it. Right. And I think the last thing I would say is really being selfless. I can remember in the early days, I would go to events and it would be, oh, who can I meet? Who can I do business with? And that's really changed now into how can I add value to this organization, or how can I add value to this event? Like, it's gotten down to, when I go in there with a attitude of serving and how am I going to help, I always reap way more than I ever give out. So that's what I would say when you cultivate relationships from that angle. I never, here's a stack of cards I just got last weekend at a conference. I didn't get these cards because I was there shuffling out my cards. I got these cards
Right.
because people were, when they had, we were talking and I'm telling them how I solve problems for people and how I make people's jobs easier and how I make it easier to serve as a board member. They're like, here you go. I mean, I never once said I want your business or this is how much it costs or anything. I just was saying, you know what, if I were you, this is how I would handle that. Or this, just being open to sharing yourself and sharing your wisdom. Now, that's not to say you give things away for free, but you have to go into it with an attitude of service. And then I think, everything else comes.
What's a day in your life like now?
Well, okay, so this week is not a good week to ask, but normally a day in my life is I get up at the crack of dawn, like 4:45, 5 o'clock, and I sit in my green chair, and that's where the magic happens. I either pray or I'm reading the Bible, or sometimes I'm just quiet to start each day. And then I get my family up and get them fed and out. And then I jump on my computer, and it's interesting because now I have learned how to compartmentalize, and I don't like sit there and answer emails all day, and I don't have my Facebook open or whatever. I've been able to learn how to just put it in buckets because, like everyone else, you get addicted to that stuff, and you can answer every single email as it comes in, and that's just not the most efficient. So, I've learned how to do the stuff I don't like first. Honestly,
I'm still working on that one.
No, I'm serious. When I make my list of things I'm going to get done today, I write the list and I look at the stuff that just makes me go, oh, I don't really want to do that, and I try to do that first because then, I don't have that dread in my stomach. And
I know.
And I spend a lot of time on the phone. I mean, my days vary, but they're all fun and fulfilling. And I'm going to tell you, every night my family has to pull me away from this Mac.
I'm working on that one as well. What one experience comes to your mind that, as you were growing and developing your business, you said, you know what, I'm on it. I'm in it, and this is what I had envisioned for myself and for my business. Have you had an experience like that yet?
Yeah, actually I've had two. The first one was about 8 months in. My largest client stopped paying his bill. Oh. He just, decided he wasn't going to pay, and he figured that I didn't have any money to go after him. And I can remember talking to my former boss, who had still not replaced me at the corporation where I left. And I had that one, millisecond of,
go back to work.
Yeah, should I go back to work? I mean, shoot, I just lost my largest client that replaced my salary, blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't even think about going back. Like, in that little bit of time, like when when that happened, that's when I knew I was in it. Because, the ability, because literally I could have just called her and said, hey, I'll come back. And she
right.
So the fact that nothing inside me went in that direction, that was my first. And then I think my second was in the middle of 2014. I'm growing at 300%, and the same thing, another big client who had been trying to hire me full time, and I'd done a lot of great work for. And you know how it is with some of those multinational global companies. They only say no they only take no for a couple times.
Right.
But this time I had anticipated, right? Whereas the first time it just kind of happened to me. This time I had been anticipating, like, they're not going to keep throwing me bones, and what am I going to do? And this time I had already had lined up a bunch of smaller things to start replacing the income that they had been providing me for that year and a half before. So those moments of when things shift, or when money, something big looks like it's going away, those are those moments I think that I really double down.
What two role models did you use as a resource or to keep you encouraged as you're developing your business? Do you have some role models from either your childhood or even from adulthood?
Okay, it's funny. When I first looked at this, I was thinking about, like, when I was a kid, my biggest role models, when I saw your question, was Shirley Chisholm and
I
Barbara
love her.
Jordan. I was,
I love her. You want
yeah,
to talk about an original rock star? I'm serious.
seriously.
I love that woman. She was just amazing, and you don't make women like that all the time. She's like, literally like a one in a million kind of person.
Absolutely. Unapologetically woman,
Absolutely.
unapologetically black. And
Yes.
I grew up in the 70s. We didn't have a lot of people that we could look to. Her and Shirley Chisholm and Barbara Jordan. And because I loved politics all the time, and
Mm.
I think at one point I thought I might be the president or something, because I literally have always loved politics. So those two women, and I think it was just their boldness, right? Like they just
Yes.
seemed, and I grew up with a very timid father who was from the
Hmm.
South. My mom was very timid. You know what I mean? And so I was
Hmm.
kind of, I kind of held my boldness back growing
Right.
up. And then the
Right.
second I got out of the house, I was like, boom. And that those were those people that were unstoppable. And then I'm going to tell you one that I've gotten recently, and it's Walt Disney. The more that I learn about Walt Disney, that man, um,
Really?
yeah, it's interesting because my kids were never really big into Disney. You know what I mean? So it's not
Hmm.
I love Disney because we went to Disney World or Disneyland or
Right.
anything like
Right.
that. It's been watching the movie Saving Mr. Banks, reading more biographies about him, and I went to see an exhibit, and my favorite thing was when him and his brother lost the rights to their first character that they created. He had gone by train to New York,
Hmm.
and his brother was like, "Send me a telegram before you come back, telling me what's going on." And so I saw the telegram like right there, and he said everything is fine, but the reality was he had been handed his shirt, and he had a
Mm.
long train ride back to California from New York, and on
Right.
the train ride he came up with Mickey Mouse. I I that I
That's
get chills
crazy.
every time I think about it, because that I feel like that's me. I feel like when my husband lost his job last August, that was another moment of,
Yeah.
do I do this, right? Because very easily, now that I've run a profitable business, if I wanted to make some calls and go be a CMO somewhere or go run a little
Right.
company, I probably could, and I probably
Right.
go back making a ton more money than when I left. But I feel like it's the Walt Disney telegram, right? Like, okay, my husband lost his job and we're temporarily in this change, but everything is okay, and I'm gonna just have to grow my business. And I'm not kidding. I had two $29,000 weeks within like 10 weeks of my husband losing his job. I literally had two of my biggest weeks. And it was because, sometimes that's when we see what we're made of, right?
Right.
When
Right.
everything else is gone and it's not there. So,
When was your last aha moment, and what was it?
okay, so I don't have a life coach right now or a business coach, but I do have a best coach. I don't know if you've heard of that, but best is bioenergetic synchronization technique. And it's a long story, but the best way it's a lot of acupuncture is part of it. What it's all about is aligning our physical with our mental well-being, and
Hmm.
how if we don't, if we are not taking care of things, our subconscious, you know, enables us not to heal the way we're designed to heal and our bodies
Right.
to work. Well, anyway, in my session I go to it quarterly, and they're pretty intense. At my last session, I realized and let go of an unconscious belief that I've had since my mom died. And that
Oh.
unconscious belief is that I'm responsible for things I'm not responsible for. I just have type A personality, jump in and do things. And it was in one of those sessions when we were talking, and part of a lot of it is letting go of unconscious beliefs, because your unconscious beliefs, they feed your behavior.
Right.
And
Right.
so when we kind of tapped on that, like, from 4 years old when my mom died, I held myself responsible for not knowing how to call 911.
Oh.
And every other 911 situation in my life till I'm 43, 4 to 43, was driven by that deep conscious, thought that I'm responsible for some things that I'm not. So, man, I could have saved me and my husband some serious therapy on that one.
I love it.
I mean, seriously, I almost fell out of the chair. I was like, wait.
Go figure. Go figure. What do you do to unwind and relax? How do you de-stress when you've had a rough or a long day?
You know what, Michelle? I am so happy to report that I started practicing yoga last year in 2014, and I do hot yoga too. I
I
don't know
like the
where,
hot yoga.
yes,
Yeah.
I don't know where yoga's been all my life, but
Seriously, right?
somebody should have told me about that because I'm so tightly wound and I have a
Hmm.
very hard time relaxing. I can. Yoga, absolutely. Like that whole breathing, connecting your breathing and being present and, stopping your mind from racing. Holy
Hmm.
Lord, that is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And my family, my kids who never like me to go anywhere, be pushing me out the door to yoga. Go to yoga,
Okay.
mommy. Because they know when I get back, it is zen. It's zen for all of us. It's not just
Oh, I love it.
the
I
whole
love it. That's funny. How old are your kids now? How old are they now?
I have a 13-year-old girl who, by the way, she started to come
Wow.
to yoga with me, which I think is cute. And then I have a 9-year-old boy.
Wow.
And they never want
That's
me gone, but they do want me to go to yoga because they know when I come back from yoga. I mean, you should see them lined up at the door with requests. Mom, can I? Because I'm just like, okay, all right.
everything's all la la. She says, yeah,
Everything's
why
all right,
not?
baby. My husband too. They all know. They all know. Get her to yoga because when she get back, we got our list. So I only go twice a week. I only go twice a week because
That is
otherwise.
too funny. What's a personal fact that most people don't know about you?
So this one was very. It's hard, but I'm going to share it because being vulnerable is one of my things I got to do more. Um, One of the things you wouldn't know about me is that I'm a scaredy cat.
Are you
When it,
really?
yes, and I don't like horror movies at all.
Neither
I just
do
don't
I.
like being scared. And let me tell you, even going on like a little water slide or I just anything that's like I'm possibly physically in danger, can't do it. And my kids, they get a kick out of it. We were just out in Disney and it was like, something with a very like 3-foot drop and I was like, ah! I mean, I hate it. And it's weird because I'm so brave and like, I mean,
Everything else?
I'm brave in every other way. I mean, even yesterday I did a staff retreat for a very dysfunctional municipality that they themselves would say it. And they were like, and you stood up to the scary woman that everybody's scared of. And I do that all the time.
Oh,
But
that's hilarious.
you put me on a ride at the carnival where I'm like jolting around. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
What was the highlight of the year for you last year?
The highlight of my year last year, there were a lot of great ones. I mean, it was very hard to choose one, but I'm going to choose being a source for an NPR story on federal government contracting.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, it was an obscure thing. I had gone to an event, and then I was in a cable show, and then, an NPR person sought me out because they saw that other piece, and it was like, the government should be working with somebody like you, the federal government. We want to hear your story and want to hear what it's like to try to do that. So that felt really good to have someone, a reporter, a national reporter, to seek me out for something.
Right. Worst job you ever had?
It's funny because I wrote down, you know what, none of my jobs were the worst. Like, I really found a way to learn something out of everyone, but if you put a gun to my head and asked, I would say it was waitressing. And nobody would ever hire me as a waitress.
Hmm.
Um, Never. Like when high school, when some of my friends were getting hired, or even in college, nobody hired me as a waitress. When I finally got hired as a waitress, like I was living in Atlanta, working, a day job, and I did that at night to pay for travel. I was like, I totally get why nobody hired me. Because people just got on my nerves. I couldn't do it. I mean, I would smile, and I remember my manager, Ned, would be like, Denise, you cannot say that to people. I still got good tips, though, so it must not have been that bad.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Do you think you found your purpose?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, I just got a email a few minutes ago from a person who serves on a village board like me, a municipality, and she said, "We are so dysfunctional, and I did not think that anything could break through. Thank you for your work." I mean, that's
Oh,
when you know, right? You hear those, or I got a lady last spring who I called out in a meeting. She wasn't participating, and I didn't know that she was kind of the office bully, but it turns out she was the office bully. And I kind of noticed that as we were collaborating, she wasn't.
mhm.
And I called her out. She, gave me a very not happy, response in front of everybody. But she sent me a
Mhm.
note afterwards and said, "You know what? You called me out, and I appreciate that." And don't laugh. Within 3 months, she was gone, and she actually went and did something else. And she sent me
Really?
another thank you. Well, because what had happened was she would tell you this now. She was done, and she had checked out, and she
Yeah.
wasn't contributing at that organization anymore. And the
Mhm.
fact that I called her out in front of all of her people, it was kind of like the first time anybody,
Really?
called her out. And she had to do a step back and be like, "Oh my gosh." And then boom, found the job she loves. Her and I have had coffee. I mean, it's just, I know I'm right where I need to be.
Perfect. Before I let you go, do you have a mantra? What's your mantra?
I do. It's funny. I have like my mantra is, nothing good is accomplished without great relationships between humans.
Love it.
That is my mantra. But I do each year have a theme. So I do want to plug my this year's theme. My this
Go
year's
for it.
theme for 2015 is unshakable. When I started my business, I think it was something like, 2012 rocks, and then 2013 was fearless because I had to, really gird up against that fear of going back to my job. And then
Right.
2014 was unencumbered. I didn't want to be encumbered by anything. So coming into this year, I'm unshakable, and it's
Love
good.
it.
Yeah.
Love it. How can our listeners get in touch with you? How can they connect with you on social media, your website? If they have questions, how can they
Sure.
reach you?
Sure, I'm totally prolific on Twitter, so you can find me at Denise W. Barreto on Twitter. I have a Facebook page for my business. It's Relationships Matter Now, and then we also have a great website, relationshipsmatternow.com. I'm launching a book next month, so absolutely
Oh,
want you
really?
guys yeah, want you
What's the
guys.
book about? What's the title and what's it about?
It's actually called Engage, Collaborate, Lead: Ignite Your Business and Ignite Your Life. It's interesting because I grew 300% year over year for 2014 from 13, and I'm right now projecting like 46% growth because those were big numbers to be coming on top of. But it's because of my methodology, and I do believe that it's something I've put together a tome that I think it's something that can be used in the masses, because not only do I use it in my business, we use Engage, Collaborate, Lead at home. I mean, our vacations now, the whole family participates. I used to be the one, I tell about that in the book. I used to be the one to plan it all. Well, my
Mm-hmm.
kids are old enough now that they have an opinion. They have things that they want
Right.
to contribute. And so I use Engage, Collaborate, Lead in all aspects of my life. And I believe that it's something that everybody can use too,
Personally and professionally.
personally and professionally. And that's actually what I feel most proud about this book, because
Mhm.
as much as it's mostly a business book, and that's what most of the content is around, at the end of every chapter, I tell you how to use that aspect at home, or as a volunteer at your church or something. Because I don't know about you, but I know I have a hard time getting through all the books that people are always telling me I should read, and
I
I
know.
find every year it's like I'm building, especially now, more business, and I don't get to read things for my personal self
Yeah.
as much. And so I
Yeah.
thought, ooh, that might be an idea. Put a business tome together, but add some, add some life practical applications as well.
Perfect. Perfect. And I'm sorry, give them your website address one more
Yeah,
time.
it's relationshipsmatternow.com, and you'll see everything related to the book out there.
Perfect. Denise, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. This is actually the first time we've communicated face to face, because I know even though we've met on Twitter, we've only spoken over the phone since what was it, 2013?
Yeah,
2000.
like 12. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And you're
Go
right.
figure.
That's why. Didn't you hear what I said as soon as I saw your face? I said, "Oh, I see your face."
She's real.
That's what I said because I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen your face, and like, I've even been to Northern California twice, thinking I got to get over and see her. So I'm glad that we did this.
And you are absolutely adorable. I love it. I love it. Thanks so much for sharing your story and being an example for other women to chart their own course and to keep it moving. Just keep going forward. I appreciate you, and I wish you nothing but continued success. I'm thrilled for you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. And thanks for being a part of that success very early on. I'm not joking. I always remember those days when I sneak into the conference room and talk to you when I was at my job trying to figure out what I was going to do next. I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today to today's episode of Professional Women Personal Stories with me, your host, A.Michelle Blakeley. If you or someone you know is a professional woman or woman entrepreneur, and you want to share your story and how you made tough decisions that yielded extraordinary results, please feel free to visit my website at www.simplicitymaster.com, or you can call me directly at 916-287-1432 and find out how you can be a guest on the next episode of Professional Women Personal Stories. Until next time, stay woman strong.